Josh Hart turns in a dominant triple-double, and the Knicks take 2 straight games in Washington to end their decimation of all Magic users over the long weekend. We're talking about it next on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, welcome in to Locked On Knicks. And we wanted to remind you guys, if you're listening to this podcast, well, you can also get a newsletter. Your favorite podcast now has a newsletter introducing the Locked On Knicks daily newsletter. One stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at lockedondaily.com. That's lockedondaily.com and start your day with an all-new free Locked On Knicks newsletter. But if you're also just checking us out on audio for the first time, make sure you hit that subscribe button, the auto download function on your favorite podcast app, or the notification bell on YouTube if you're checking us out on YouTube, because we are here for you guys 5 days a week. So make sure you never miss an episode. I'm Alex Wolf. I'm editor-in-chief of Knicks site, The Strickland, which you can find at strick.land. And he's Gavin Shaw, your favorite play-by-play broadcaster's favorite play-by-play broadcaster. And the Knicks today, Gavin, big win, sort of. I mean, it was still annoyingly close for portions of the game, namely the first half. But the Knicks did what they should have done the other day and pulled away in the second half in this one, cranked the defense up. I think looked a lot better than they did in their first game against Washington. Did not need a 50-piece from Jalen Brunson and overtime to get out of this one, which is always a good thing. But really, I think the star of the show in this game was Josh Hart, without much argument at all. 23 points, 15 boards, 10 assists, 2 steals, 7 of 15 shooting, 4 of 8 from 3. 5 of 7 for the free throw line. He tied for the most free throw attempts on the team in this game as well. Just a dominant performance from him. I thought that there was just all the quintessential Josh Hart things, the driving, the finishing, the one that stood out to me as far as hustle plays, and he made plenty of them, but the one that really stood out was he crashed in for a rebound that was hanging out around baseline, grabbed it, planted both feet like he was like a football wide receiver.
Tipping on the baseline.
Yeah, trying to get 2 feet in bounds or whatever. Stomped his feet in bounds and then threw it to, I think it was Precious Achiuwa, who then got a nice little lay-in off of that. Just an awesome play there. But what did you make of Josh Hart's night? I should also note, 9th triple-double, which pushed him past Julius Randle on the Knicks all-time list and is pushing him dangerously close to the top 3 already after just 2.5 seasons, or not even quite 2 full seasons with the Knicks.
It's crazy to think about, right? Because it feels like I can't remember a time where Josh Hart wasn't on the Knicks, and it literally hasn't been 2 years. That's maybe the biggest testament to him. And it just feels like, who knows if the Knicks win a championship in this era, and maybe that will ultimately define it. But assuming we're all around 30, 40 years down the road, it feels like obviously Jalen will come up first, but you're telling your kids when you're talking to your friends about this era of Knicks basketball, Josh Hart might ultimately be the most memorable part of it. He is what makes this team special in so many ways. And look, if Jalen wasn't there to elevate their ceiling, he would just be like, oh, he was awesome. Too bad he didn't have a good team around him. But the beauty of it is you have both those guys, Jalen to make this team great, and Jalen to give you the possibility of being great. And Josh is the one who gives you that consistency every single night. And on a night, a first quarter, especially, where they look bad again, I thought the defense wasn't really good. Brunson was kind of shooting well, but it was a really slow start. It was clear. 3rd game in 4 nights, 7 wins in a row. This team just needed some juice to get over the finish line. And that's what Josh Hart brings. 17 points in the first 7 minutes of the second quarter, 14 points in the first 5 minutes. He was just amazing to start that period. And it began with I loved late first quarter. I loved the adjustment from Tom Thibodeau. They tried to start Jonas Valanciunas on Josh Hart and just hide him there. And instead of waiting for the fourth quarter and overtime like they did last game to use him as a screener for Brunson with Sarr, they immediately said, all right, we're putting Valanciunas in the action. Hart sets the screen. Brunson, little hesitation dribble to keep Koulibaly on him, hits hard on the slim. And then Hart just dumps it to OG on the short roll for a jam. And you could do that all game. The Wizards smartened up and took Valanciunas off him, but by then it was too late. He had 3 straight threes to start the quarter. The first 2 were wide open. The third one, an offensive rebound where he just backed it out. Then some free throws, then an offensive rebound, then a step back elbow jumper, then a drive and an and one. And then from there, it was the passing and the rebounding, to your point, that stood out even more to me. Like he was just so good all game long as the middleman. Hit Mikal when he was doubled, when Josh was doubled, like just whipped it to Mikal for a layup. At one point there was a loose ball and he picked it up and he just one-timed it to OG Anunoby, like never even fully had it, just whipped it into the corner. Another one where like Brunson hit him on a cut and then he hit Cat for a lay. Like that was sort of a big theme. Maybe my favorite sequence of the game wasn't even him doing that much, but he picked it up. Like it was just a loose ball after Brunson kind of poked it away from Kuzma. Throw it up to Brunson, who did a Euro step to Bridges, extra pass, Deuce, rhythm, left wing 3, cashed it in. And then late in the game, setting up Cat for 2 dunks. Like he just made everything work initially with his scoring when the Knicks needed it. The Wizards focused more attention on him. He said, great, I'm going to set up everyone else for easy shots. Masterful game from him. I think he basically single-handedly turned this one into a blowout.
Yeah, I think so too. And I mean, they really, to your point, needed that scoring in the second quarter. So this was kind of just like a game of Josh Hart giving them exactly what they needed any given quarter, because they were, I don't want to say floundering, but it was looking like a trap game a little bit, like in the second quarter. Like you really thought, okay, well, all good things come to an end. Like, a really subpar team could beat a really good team, any day of the week in the NBA. I think I said that in the last episode. Like every NBA team is full of NBA players, like a team can get hot or upset any team any given night. So it felt like it was going to be one of those nights. And then the 17 points, I mean, it was just obscene. It was like, it's one of those where like he just randomly turns into like Kobe Bryant every once in a while. And that was one of those quarters where like he's all of a sudden just dribbling into 3-pointers and taking, faders from the free throw line and just all this other stuff that was just bonkers. I don't know what he channels every once in a while. He wears Kobe's all the time, so maybe it's a like Mike situation. Maybe he actually like got these, these were like donated to him from Vanessa Bryant or something. It's one of Kobe's actual pairs, and he wears them and turns into Kobe for a little bit. I don't know what the deal is there, but yeah, I mean he played fantastic in that quarter, and the rest of the way out, to your point, just played the connector, played the rebounder, played the the guy to keep everybody else going, which I think worked really well for like OG Anunoby, for example, who in the second half finally kind of found himself again. I mean, he's been struggling a bit lately. Stephen Bondi of the Daily News noted it, and then I was watching on delay actually, so I saw the tweet before I saw the moment, and I started noticing as well that OG took the rather intricate like rock tape wrap off of his elbow that he's been wearing ever since before his elbow surgery, and that he's just kind of kept wearing it since then. But he usually has like a big strip going down the outside portion of his elbow, and then a big strip going down the inside portion, and then 2 like stabilizing strips on the top and bottom. And that was noticeably off in the second half. And then he drained, I think it was like 3 straight 3-pointers early on in the third quarter, and looked like he kind of found his shot again. So maybe we were just speculating in the last recap that maybe he was getting a little tired, but is it possible that maybe OG just his little elbow wrap was irritating him and was too itchy or something? Like, I don't know. It seems like that worked pretty good for him.
Yeah, he still looks a step slow on defense to me. It's something I'm going to keep watching. Again, it could be as simple as 3 games in 4 nights. And we said unprecedented games played, unprecedented minutes for him at this point in the year. So it would totally make sense that he's just a little tired. But I saw like early in this game, got fooled by kind of just like a rub screen or a ghost screen, and then just wasn't even close to catching up to 32-year-old Malcolm Brogdon, who, by the way, was playing well enough in this game that I Googled his contract, $22 million. So the Knicks will not be trading for Malcolm Brogdon, unfortunately, because I think, I know I made the case in past seasons. I still think he'd be a good fit. But anyways, he toasted OG. Kuzma toasted him at one point for a dunk. Jared Butler in the second half just blew right by him off the dribble. Like, not like what are we now? Like 4 games removed from that 5 straight games of like 5 or more stocks that he had, like has just not quite made the same impact defensively. And it's possible teams are playing away from him. And you look at his plus minus every game, and I mean, I think tonight it was not particularly good. Let me see. I finished just +1. So, but generally, like over the aggregate, and you're going to talk about this tonight as we're at the 1 year anniversary of his trade. You look at his net rating, you look at his overall impact. Like the Knicks are generally much better when he's on the floor. So I don't want to make too much out of nothing here, but I still think steps slow defensively, offensively, hits those 3 threes. Aside from that, was 2 for 11 on the rest of his shots, which obviously if you just take away 3 made shots from anyone, the shooting line's not going to do well. So I'll just say it 5 for 14 overall. Did make 4 free throws. Jonas Valanciunas swatted him on a block. I don't know. It's something I'm still watching, but that's a great note. And the shot clearly was going in more in the second half. And I think the Knicks did a good job just making a concerted effort to find him. When we come back, Karl-Anthony Towns, one of the more quiet 32 and 13 games you'll ever see. Sort of an up and down night for Mikal Bridges and Jalen Brunson. Both of them didn't really shoot well, but I thought kind of played well in other areas. We'll talk about all that and more next right here on Locked On Knicks.
But first, we got to let you know about our friends over at Rocket RX. Today's episode is brought to you by Rocket RX. If you're ready to boost your confidence and take control in the bedroom, Rocket RX has the solution. Imagine feeling more prepared and performing at your best. Rocket RX makes it simple and stress-free. Rocket RX offers FDA-approved treatments for erectile dysfunction at a lower cost than branded alternatives. No more uncomfortable doctor visits or pharmacy trips. Everything's delivered straight to your door in discreet, plain packaging. With Rocket RX, you'll get trusted care from a U.S. clinical team, complete a quick 100% online consultation, and you could get your free prescription today. Visit rocketrx.com to get started now. It only takes 2 minutes. Right now, our listeners can get 40% off your first order when you use code LOCKEDONNBA. That's rocketrx.com. Code LOCKEDONNBA for 40% off your first order. Terms and conditions apply. Rocket RX, better sex made simple. All right, we're back in to keep talking through this Knicks win over the Wizards, and maybe the key here ultimately was the bench, which we'll talk about in a minute, which made a comeback and scored a whopping 20 plus points, to 13, 16, 22 points for the bench in this game, which turned out to be a big deal. But before that, Karl-Anthony Towns, I think more so than last game, he's had two very quiet 30-point games in a row. I don't know what it is about the last two where it's just kind of, you look up and you look at the box score and suddenly you're like, oh, he has 30. Well, the last one, it was easy because Brunson had 55. So it was a little easy to get lost in the fray there. But this time around, he was the high scorer on the Knicks, and you couldn't really know. Like it didn't really feel that way for most of the game. However, I did think that this one was a little more it stood out a little more than the previous game, in that I was taking note of the fact that he really gave Alex Sarr his welcome to the NBA moment in this game. I think that well, I guess last game Brunson kind of did too, because Brunson generated those switches onto him last game and it tended to toast him over and over again. In this one, Cat was just taking the poor guy one-on-one. And I mean, Sarr did his best considering he's a rookie. He's, I think, still 19 years old. He's very young. Cat is a grown man at damn near 30, and just really had his way with doing whatever he wanted on offense in this one. Ended up shooting 13 of 19. It was just the post-ups, he didn't have the three-point shot going. That's the other thing that I guess makes it more impressive. Sort of similar to Brunson in the last game, scoring 55 with how poorly he shot from three. Cat getting 32 on 19 shots without taking a single three kind of just underscores the amount that he was able to work Sarr in this one. It was a lot of just post-ups, baby hooks. I think made one of his little trademark baseline jumpers early in the game where he sort of created a little bit of space and then just stepped back, sort of Dirk-ish style on one leg, and just drained a shot from the baseline. But I thought just sort of a vintage Towns game in that regard, Gavin, like a nice, easy 30-point game, led the team in free throws made, and getting to the free throw line, which was great. This is the sort of game that, they're not always going to be like the Timberwolves game where it's all flash and mean mugs at the camera and making faces and everything. Sometimes he's just going to go out there and just score 30 and you will barely even notice. And that's just kind of part of the cat experience.
Yeah, I think you summed it up perfectly. I love the way he was attacking the rim. Like I think he had maybe 4 dunks in this game, and that was the part of the cat experience. As someone who just I guess didn't watch a ton of Timberwolves, like I was not really anticipating. Like I expected the shooting. I knew he was really good on post ups, but just how explosive he is. I think I thought of him just because that's sort of the perception on defense. Like, all right, he's going to be a little plotting and he'll roll to the rim, but when he rolls to the rim, he'll mostly just catch it, like up fake, do like a jump hook. Like he was going to win with craft more than athleticism. And what makes him so special, and honestly, the comp I'm going to throw out there is a former Knicks legend, Carmelo Anthony, where like Melo was like craft and jab steps and mid range shooting and threes, and then he dunk on you like kind of out of nowhere, and you're like, oh wait, he has that too, and then that's what makes him so special. Because late in this game, I mentioned like Hart just had this perfectly timed lob where Cat got a steal on Sar, and Hart was just staring like a hole through Deuce on the wing, and then just threw a no look lob up to Cat. But then on the pick and roll, like over and over again, like hitting Cat with a bounce pass for a jam, and then Cat just like between the legs, Hezzy burst on Sar like a one-handed dunk. He had a fourth one in transition where he picked off a pass that was intended for Sar and took it coast to coast and dunked it. And then to your point, in the post, just like twice you saw him go to like that just reverse pivot attack baseline, had an and one reverse layup on Jonas Valanciunas, cooked Sar, to your point, for a little jump hook. Like just a clean game from him. But again, it's really the athleticism that stands out to me. I want to shout out both Jalen and Mikal, but before we do, I think we should mention Deuce McBride, because obviously we've been complaining a lot about the bench, and it looked like another night where we'd be doing a lot of complaining, because the Wizards, Alex, scored the first 22 bench points of this game. It was 22-0. Deuce missed some good looks at three, like had another one that was wide open that just went in and out. Like he just feels a little snake bitten. But I think what I was missing, and maybe what I failed to describe with the bench, was just, all right, if you're not going to give scoring, can you like crash for an offensive rebound? Can you play great point of attack defense? And unfortunately, most of that is focused on Deuce, because he is far and away the best talent on the bench. And we saw that tonight, like especially in the second half. 8 points, but more importantly, Alex, in 18 minutes, 6 assists, 3 steals, pulled off a Alvarado, if you're a Knicks head, a Prigioni, where he just poked it away from Brogdon on an inbound after a made basket and got a layup. That was really cool. Another play that stood out to me, like in heavy traffic, there were 4 Wizards, and he just skied over the crowd and beat Champagnie for an offensive rebound and got to the line. Had probably the best defensive sequence any Knick had in this game, where he shut down Brogdon with excellent screen navigation. Then he switched on to Sar and shut him down and poked the pass away. I mentioned the 3 hit, had like a smooth baseline jumper. Really good game for him. And maybe we haven't said this enough, just how dire it's been for the Knicks bench. I just pulled it up. They are 30th. That is last in the NBA in bench scoring. And everyone else is sort of grouped together. They are 5 points worse in terms of bench scoring than any other team in the NBA. Clearly, at some point, maybe it's as simple as Mitchell Robinson. He makes things easier for everyone and obviously makes the defense better off the bench. But seems like at some point they're going to make a trade for another scorer. Tonight, Deuce really helped the cause, though.
Yeah, I think at this point it almost feels totally necessary to make a trade for someone else. Like, although this game it felt a little less so. I thought the Precious did a pretty good job off the bench too, like finding his looks, hit a corner 3 at one point. But Deuce, I think to your point, was the one that made the biggest impact. And it's still just odd seeing him struggle to even crack 20 minutes. But I guess that has more to do with how he played in the first half than how he played in the second, because he did get a decent stint in the second half. But I wonder if some of this is just comes down to these guys needing rhythm. Although that doesn't really excuse like the missed layups and stuff like that. Like, unfortunately, that's become sort of the staple of the Deuce experience lately, is the missed layups. And maybe he got a little bit more comfortable in this game, which would be nice. The one shot that he made was a 3. The other one was like a little turnaround jumper. Last one was that layup off the Prigioni steal, which was awesome. At that one, I was like, I watched the last basket by the Knicks, and then that was one of those. I think it caught the MSG broadcast by surprise too, because they were already panning.
No, they
down the,
missed it, and then they showed the replay, and
yeah, they
that's
were
what they caught,
panning down the court, and then all of a sudden we're like, wait a minute, Miles McBride. So that was cool. Also, shout out to the Knicks fans that I think outnumbered the Wizards fans in these last
Mhm.
2 games in the Wizards building. The Deuce chants went crazy. I mean, they were so loud. They kept noting it on the broadcast too. And Josh Hart at the end of the game even was like, "Yeah, this was what home game 43 for us this year." Like kind of a knock to his hometown
Yeah.
fans, which is kind of hilarious because they were like, "What's it like being home?" For this game. He's like, "Oh, it's great. I mean, this is like home game 43 for us." Like, oh geez, really knocking your hometown crowd there, but a little more of a football town anyway, and he's a big Commanders fan, so I guess that tracks. But anyway, yeah, it was a great game by Deuce, and or at least a great half, and hopefully one that he can translate into son for the future. Because yeah, I think the Knicks, really just for they were able to give, Jalen Brunson only 36 minutes. Only, I mean, that's like still fairly high, but like 36 minutes for him, 36 for Mikal, which may as well be an off night, 34 for OG. Like Josh Hart had to play 41, but like if these guys are going to be able to get a little bit of rest here and there, you definitely need, better play out of Deuce, but also good play out of Payne and Landry Shamet, who finally I think was able to sort of plant his flag a little bit in this game. So we'll talk about that in just a second when we get back in.
But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at Rocket Money. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or you were paying for twice? Definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all the app's premium features. Alex, I had a time in my life where I realized I was signed up for this site for like over a year and a half, and I didn't even realize it, and it was charging me $15 a month. And it's just the worst feeling in the world when you email them and you're like, "Hey, can I get a refund?" They're like, "Yeah, only for the last month," and you're out $200 something for something you didn't even use. That'll never happen to me again as long as I use Rocket Money. So cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. All right, let's hit. I think we could hit Jalen Brunson and Mikal Bridges as a twosome because I thought maybe in slightly different ways they had very similar games. I'll start with Mikal, who I think maybe because I saw Benji Ritholtz's post game grades before I actually got to sit down and watch this one. I think he gave Mikal like a C or a C plus. And I'm usually pretty in lockstep with how Benji views the game, which is probably a high compliment to myself because he's one of the smartest people doing this. But he gave Mikal like a C or a C plus. I thought this was a good game for Mikal. It was just the shots didn't fall down at all. Like he was 6 for 15, 1 for 6 from 3. But I know I keep saying this. Like I just cannot take for granted enough the activity level. Maybe it was because even on the nights where he shot well, I was saying, all right, but he's still like allergic to getting to the rim. And tonight was the opposite, or last night was the opposite, where he didn't shoot well, Alex. And yet, like, he had 3 shots at the rim in the first 5 minutes of this game. And earlier in the season, he was going 3 games without having 3 shots at the rim. He was going 3 games without having 1 shot at the rim. And I just thought it was fun to just see him get to the basket. And it's sort of like, the whole trade was like getting a new toy, opening it, and it just being broken for the first few months of the season. And now we're getting to use the toy, and it's a great feeling. So shout out to Mikal Bridges. Like I think some of it is just timing at the rim. Like this almost, I know he's had games where he's finished well, but it still sort of feels like preseason for him in that he's just started trying to do this. Like he had this great drive on Sarr, right, where he just burst right by him and then caught him on a pump fake when Sarr caught up. Sarr went flying by, and he just rushed the finish because I think he assumed the help was going to be there. If he had just paused, done a little double pump, it would have been an easy layup. Cat got the tip in anyways, but it was still like exciting. And then he had like a Euro step lay-in over Brogdon. It was great just cutting all game. Like I mentioned, Josh hit him when he was double teamed one time. Like another play where he won a loose ball. It led to a cat dunk in transition. Was consistently making the extra pass. His final bucket was Brunson setting him up, where Brunson just blew by Kispert, gave him an advantage against Keontae George closing out, and then he blew by George, hit a mid-range jumper. I thought, again, shots weren't falling, but really clean game for Mikal. Jalen, like, sort of similar, where like the shots weren't going in, and like maybe he was due for an off game after the last two. Still had 11 points in the first quarter to kind of keep them afloat. When I think the Knicks, what did they start? 1 for 11 from 3 in this game. Nothing from the bench. Like they went 4 minutes without a basket in the first quarter. So shout out to Jalen keeping them alive. But what stood out to me from him was all the hockey assists in this game. Like over and over again, you could tell the Wizards just a little bit of PTSD from how he cooked them last game. We're sending 2, 3, 4 defenders at him, and he was just over and over again making the right pass, making the right play. The defense was a little hit or miss. Like Corey Kispert was torching him off the ball. I thought he was better in the second half than he was in the first half, fighting through screens, playing better on the ball. Final shot of the game for him was dirty. Like that 1-2 step on Kyle Kuzma, just balanced on one foot, hit an elbow jumper. So some good, some bad from those two in the Villanova trio, but I thought mostly just doing enough to win.
Yeah, I have less to add on Brunson than I do Mikal. I'll just say, like, I agree with everything he said on Mikal. The driving is the big difference maker to me, I think. It's like if this were a game 3 weeks ago and he went 1 of 6 from 3, we probably would have been like, damn, like guy needs to do something. Like if you're not going to make those threes, then what are you doing? It's like, because that was all he had a few weeks ago, was just 3-pointers. And now, with the driving, it adds that extra element. It's the same thing of like OG can have a bad game shooting it from 3 and yet still pull together a good game because he drives and finishes at the rim and, sometimes draws free throws, whatever. Same thing with Cat, like we saw literally in this game, where he didn't make a 3, but scored 30 points because he drives, he gets to the rim, he draws fouls, whatever. And, Bridges didn't ultimately draw a free throw in this game, but I think there were a couple situations where had the defense played him a little differently, he reasonably could have, drawn a foul in this one. But the driving just in general, I think even opens up his passing. Like he was it was kind of a phenomenal passing game for the Knicks, low key in this one. 34 assists, and 10 of those were Josh Hart. But then Mikal Bridges, Jalen Brunson, Deuce McBride all tie with 6 assists apiece. And Bridges, I think the driving opens up that passing for him. And I don't think he's necessarily Magic Johnson out there, or LeBron James or whatever, where he's going to toss some like behind the head crazy crap, to some guy at the 3-point line or something. But it opens up basic reads for him. It's like a college option quarterback or something, where it's like you just spoon feed him the easy ones off the low hanging fruit of just driving in, and then he can make some pretty good passes, and find some guys in the corner. Or, even I just feel like when everything is clicking for him like that, it even just makes the extra pass a little easier for him. Like there was just a really nice sequence where I think it was Brunson was driving baseline and kicked it out to Mikal in the corner. And he could have tried to, just shoot it himself, but the defender was closing on him. Just makes that nice little extra pass to Deuce, which where the ball barely touches his hands, and then it's already in Deuce's hands, and Deuce cans his 1-3 for the game there. So, just a really nice all around game. Like to your point, on the stat sheet, doesn't really pop. Like 13 points, 6 boards, 6 assists, 2 steals. 6 of 15 shooting, 1 of 6 from 3. You might go, if you're just box score watching, and be like, oh geez, there's another bad Mikal game. But it looked good. The process was good. I'm happy with it. Same basically applies to Brunson, so I don't really have anything much to add there. I guess my last thing, I'll just shout out the bench one more time. The guys we didn't touch on as much other than Deuce. I thought Precious had a pretty solid stint again, 4 boards, no offensive rebounds, but he was certainly in the mix for all the rebounds, which you love to see. 5 points for him, 2 of 2 shooting. He's got to be efficient if he wants to stay on the floor, I feel like, at least from an offensive perspective. And he managed to do that in this one. And then Landry Shamet, 2 of 4 overall, but 2 of 2 from 3. And he looks like he's starting to find himself a little bit. Granted, I think both those makes came in somewhat garbage time. So, whatever, but you take what you can get with him at this point. Like, he needs to just get reps at the NBA level at this point. And he got two different types of 3-point looks, both of which sort of remind me of, I mean, I don't want to invoke someone had a really good year last year and set the Knicks 3-point record, but the way that he was being set up for threes reminded me of Dante DiVincenzo a bit. It's plays that we're not really seeing run for any other people. The one was just a hit in the corner, which I guess we see all the time, but the quick little dribble handoff at the elbow is not something that we're seeing for as many guys on the Knicks as I would think we would. I would think that would be something that OG could get into, that Mikal could get into, and yet we don't really see it for those guys yet. Shamet came in in this one in garbage time just gets a nice little quick dribble handoff at the right elbow, grabs the ball, just really quick trigger, and nails a three from there. If that's something that the Knicks can add back into their repertoire with him, and sort of, I had speculated in the preseason, like, hey, you're losing Dante DiVincenzo, but I do think that Landry Shamet could be like, I don't want to put this disrespectfully, but like great value Dante DiVincenzo. You know what I mean? Like, the store brand. I don't think that he's Dante DiVincenzo at his best, but I think he can give you a percentage of what Dante DiVincenzo gave you, maybe 75, 80% at his best. And if that's the case, like, that's what the Knicks need off the bench right now, hopefully for 15 to 20 minutes a game. I think there's a real chance that 2-3 weeks from now, he's the guy more so than Cameron Payne, who's kind of taking the bulk of those non-Deuce, non-precious bench minutes. Because I think really what the Knicks need is just another wing presence that can shoot some threes and play out there with OG or Mikal, so that both of those guys don't have to be out there all the time, and he could be sort of the bridge between the two of them. I think he's well on his way. I think the defense has been better than I was expecting. I think the shooting is starting to come around, and once he fully gets his legs under him, I think the Knicks possibly have a really good steal for a veterans minimum contract, possibly even less than a regular veterans minimum because of the fact they signed him almost halfway through the season. So I liked what we're seeing out of him, and hopefully we keep seeing more of it.
Yeah, I would I'd give OG Anunoby, like, just give him off Wednesday, let him rest 4 days, play Landry Shamet 25 minutes. What's the worst that happens? Like, they could lose to the Jazz. Obviously the Jazz kicked their butt the last time they played, so it's not me saying that's an automatic win. It's more so saying I think you'd have more value like letting OG take 4 days off, get refreshed a little bit, come back full bore for the Oklahoma City game, which we'll talk about. I think is like maybe the Knicks' best test of the year so far, at least since opening night against Boston, and I'm really looking forward to that one. But let Shamet shoot 8 threes, like let him find a rhythm and find some confidence. And I think, like, again, it's like a little chicken or the egg with the bench. Like does Tibbs not play them because they suck, or do they suck because they don't have time to get into rhythm? And still sort of an open question, but I wouldn't mind a game where Deuce was out there for 30 minutes and Shamet was out there for 25 minutes. It doesn't have to take an injury. Like, I know I've been saying this, but you can be proactive and say, hey, Mikal, you've been playing. Well, maybe I guess you can't give Mikal a game off because that would end his streak, it is sort of a blessing and a curse. But give OG a night off. Like, maybe give Jalen a night off. Give Josh a night off, because those guys could use a little bit of a break, could use a little bit of a rest after the sequence. The Knicks have won 8 in a row. Things are good. I just think there should be a little bit of forward thinking and trying to get these guys a rhythm. Even Campaign, like we've seen his floor game sort of disappear. Like he's chucking up threes, but he's not really getting to the rim. Like, he's not really running pick and roll. And I don't know if that's a product of his minutes or just how he's choosing to play, but I'm hoping they can find a way to get these guys some type of rhythm, because the Knicks are doing an incredible thing right now where they have like essentially the best offense in basketball with the bench literally giving them nothing. And that's how you have all these nights where the starters look incredible and they just, some of these games, not tonight, obviously, they just barely pull out. So that's what I'm hoping for going forward. But Alex, I think we've talked about 70 minutes about the Wizards and the depleted Magic. So I think we can put a pin in it there. Alex will be back tonight talking about OG Anunoby. We'll both be back to talk about that Jazz game, XJ on Thursday. And then I don't know, we haven't quite decided yet, but hopefully Friday night we get you a recap of that Thunder game. I'm really excited for that one. Tune in for that and so much more on Locked On Knicks.